Tonight, 4 injured, including a police officer and 2 children in a frightening M1 crash.
Armed and fed up, a Gold Coast shop owner fights back as a shock police survey shows many Queenslanders don't feel safe.
Nine chairman Peter Costello under pressure and hitting back over an airport run-in.
The new push to cap petrol prices as fuel costs surge again.
Brisbane to Bangkok from $200. Cheap flights are back. Only we have the list of best value destinations.
And inside the renovated heritage home that could be about to fetch a record price.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Sharyn, Ghidella and Max Futcher.
Good evening. 4 people, including 2 children and a highway patrol officer, are in a serious condition tonight after a terrifying crash on the M1 involving a police car.
The officer was on duty when he was rammed by a ute, sparking a major rescue mission.
Friday afternoon, southbound on the M1, a highway patrol car, now a mangled mess. Firefighters using the jaws of life in a marathon mission to rescue the officer trapped inside.
He was conducting his traffic duties from the side of the road.
The 55-year-old senior constable was doing registration checks when he was rammed by a blue ute at high speed. Behind the wheel, a 54-year-old grandmother and her grandchildren aged 9 and 1.
From what they're telling us initially, there was no dangerous operation of that vehicle occurring prior to the incident.
A terrifying accident that could have been deadly.
Literally like a sardine can. It had been pretty much squashed to about half its normal length.
Causing traffic chaos with 2 lanes closed for most of the afternoon. An off-duty officer was behind the wheel of this car and witnessed the crash. He pulled over to help before the patrol car came crashing into the back of his Jeep.
We suspect there's either a mechanical failure within the police car to arrest it, or the driver of the police vehicle is actually unconscious at the time.
The grandmother and child were taken to Gold Coast University Hospital in serious but stable conditions. The officer also serious but stable and in good spirits.
We'll rally around him and his family, and we'll certainly give him all the support he needs so we can get him back to work.
Police tonight wrapping their arms around one of their own. All 4 patients tonight remain in a stable condition. Paramedics say they're amazed no one was killed. This accident follows a number of other crashes on the M1 this week, with drivers urged to slow down and drive to conditions.
Paige Van Lunteren there on the Gold Coast. A large blaze has destroyed a Logan Village home this afternoon. Ned Balm crews battled the blaze for more than an hour.
Yeah, that's right, Sharyn, and it's not hard to see why when you see these pictures. Now, they were called to a Miller Road home around 1 o'clock. The fire quickly engulfing the rural property, collapsing in the iron roof and then spreading to a nearby car in the front yard. A total of 8 crews were needed to control the inferno, and neighbours were told to stay indoors due to smoke in the area. Thankfully, no one was inside at the time. Investigators are still on the scene as we speak, working to determine the cause of the blaze.
Ned Balm with that report. A shock police survey has revealed many Queenslanders don't feel safe in their own neighbourhood. New video shows one shop owner on the Gold Coast arming himself with a baseball bat as his store comes under attack.
Bat in hand, a Coolangatta shop owner defends his business. Under siege from young thugs after breaking up a violent fight.
He's come out the door with a barbecue spatula, trying to smash the window.
It's not the first time he's been targeted. This video is from March.
He tried to carjack an old lady down the road, yet there's no consequences.
In Nerang,
For the last 6 months, we've been terrorised by a group of youths.
firebombing Sarah Kelly's driveway and attacking her brother and father.
All on CCTV footage, and the police haven't charged anyone.
The results of a community survey conducted by Queensland Police shows many residents feel unsafe. Only 43% of respondents say they feel safe walking alone in their suburb at night. 55% believe police are honest, while fewer Queenslanders think officers treat people fairly and equally. 61% say they'd feel confident to call police if they were in a domestic or family violence situation. The Commissioner partly blaming a change in surveying methods as as well as spiralling cases of youth crime and domestic violence. 7 News has spoken to a number of working police who've told us their shifts are comprised of responding to back-to-back domestic violence calls.
We're tracking towards 191,000 occurrences, but it's 80% underreported.
Shocking numbers leaders have vowed to change. Jordan Bissell, 7 News.
Gold Coast residents are facing another cost of living blow with a council rates hike on the way. Mel Whiteman has the details, and Mel, Tom Tate today revealed his biggest budget yet.
Sharyn, the average household will pay around $3 more a week, with rates rising by 4.2%, which is still below CPI. Council had to balance the need for big spending to keep up with the city's rapid population growth. Some locals say the increase will add up for families under pressure, but others told 7 News it's worth it for the upgrades.
We've needed to show restraint this year to keep the rates as low as we possibly can.
$3 a week is definitely doable, but no, I really feel for families out there who are doing it tough, and that $3 a week will add up and make a big difference to them.
Record roads funding and money for the film industry was also in the $2.5 billion budget, as was more than $50 million for light rail.
Mel Whiteman on the Gold Coast tonight. Things have gone from bad to worse at Channel 9 as its chairman now faces allegations of assault. Peter Costello, the former federal treasurer, denies any fault after a nasty run-in with a journalist, but even some of Nine's biggest on-air stars see it differently.
Nine Entertainment chairman Peter Costello making front-page news in his own papers.
Mr. Costello, did you assault a journalist at Canberra Airport?
He says he didn't.
I did not lay a finger or a fist or anything else on him.
Approached at Canberra Airport by News Corp journalist Liam Mendes, asked about Nine's sexual harassment crisis, here is what happened.
Don't. You've just assaulted me. You've just pushed me. It's all on camera. Mr. Costello.
Mr. Costello stopping to pick up his coat, laughing. His version.
As I walked past him, he walked back into an advertising placard and he fell over.
Eyewitnesses, though, saw it differently.
He hit you about here and I watched you fall over there. I was just out there having a smoke on the phone.
Yeah, okay. He was trying to say that I'd walked into there, but I don't
saw it.
you got two guys that saw
shunting,
Yeah, so you guys saw that?
Yeah. F***ing earth we saw it.
Peter Costello was in Canberra last night to open Nine's new press gallery office. Today, Nine's board had a scheduled committee meeting and, suddenly, a new reputational issue to discuss. From Nine's own radio stars...
Boss, you've had a shocker.
That is a very, very bad look for Peter Costello.
Support from Peter Dutton.
I've never known Peter to be aggressive.
And on Nine's Today Show, a dig.
Is there a job going at Channel 9 as the chairman?
Wow, he's gone early, Bill.
Too soon.
What does Peter Costello think of suggestions he should stand down?
Rubbish.
Knocking that right over. Mark Riley, 7 News.
A woman has died and a young child seriously injured in a crash at Upper Caboolture this afternoon. The woman was driving when the car left the road and hit a tree. The infant was taken to the Queensland Children's Hospital with critical head injuries. Investigators are appealing for witnesses.
The state government's much-lauded Big Build infrastructure program is under fire tonight with a blowout in the billions. The eye-watering increase pushes Queensland even further into debt, but the opposition won't be drawn on which, if any, projects it would ditch.
At Roma Street Station this morning, the Treasurer continuing to spruik Labor's infrastructure centrepiece.
This is our government's Big Build in action.
But today we found out the Big Build now has a much bigger price tag.
In our budget next week, our state's Big Build will be $107 billion.
$107 billion. That's an $18 billion blowout from when it was unveiled in last year's budget.
We are being upfront about escalations.
The government blaming the Coomera Connector as the main culprit for the ballooning price tag.
Coomera Connector, $1.5 billion blowout.
We've already announced that.
Along with a $500 million increase in the cost of Sunshine Coast Rail and spiralling budgets for Olympics and Paralympics venues.
Gold Coast Light Rail Stage 3 blowout, $500 million. Cross River Rail blowout by about $4 billion.
Like all infrastructure projects across Australia, our program is facing cost pressure challenges.
Other states do not have the strength of our balance sheet, so states like New South Wales and Victoria.
When asked what would be on the chopping block if they win government, the LNP says any project that's been fully costed and had a business case done will have their support. But what they have vowed is to enforce a link between ministerial job security and future sloppy spending.
Haul the ministers in, hold them accountable for these continual budget blowouts and say, I'm sorry, it's not acceptable.
And Katrina Blowers joins us now. And Katrina, how will this blowout impact next week's budget?
Well, it certainly ramps up the scrutiny because we know the government will also be borrowing billions more to deliver what's being promised as the biggest cost of living package in any state. Labor has to sell whether the debt we're going into to pay for all of this is worth it. While cost of living relief will no doubt be politically popular, the opposition has already announced it will support everything in the budget, so Queenslanders get those regardless of which major party they vote in. A masterstroke from Crisafulli, perhaps? It's a gamble because if the budget reveals even bigger blowouts and debt forecasts, the LNP, by trying to be a small target, could be committing us to a big black hole for years to come.
All right, Katrina, thank you. A desperate search is unfolding as we go to air tonight for celebrity doctor Michael Mosley. The 67-year-old vanished on the Greek island of Symi, last seen heading for a coastal walk on a rocky trail. Search crews so far haven't found any trace of him.
In the skies above paradise, helicopters scan the pristine coastline, dreading a grim find.
This I find utterly unbelievable, I have to say.
Celebrity doctor Michael Mosley missing. His food revolution, including the 5-2 diet, has changed lives around the world.
I want to wake up the nation and its movers and shakers.
He arrived in Symi on Tuesday with his wife. The next morning, they travelled to St Nicholas Beach. 1:30 p.m, he walked back to his holiday home alone and without his phone. Usually a 20-minute hike, but in searing heat. 6 hours later, his wife sounded the alarm, police fearing he'd fallen from a height. Islanders sharing this photo, asking, "Have you seen this man?" But the massive search is plagued by confusion. Witnesses claim they saw Mosley speaking with others after his walk.
All the rescue teams of the island are looking to find him.
Mosley's mission often took him to Australia. He joined Ray Kelly in the fight against diabetes.
When I got a chance to work with him, I jumped at it. He definitely sort of speaks to the researchers and tries to get a great understanding of how the research actually works in the real world.
But tonight it's his family and countless followers left desperate for answers. Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
The Albanese government has moved to toughen Australia's migration laws, scrapping rules that allowed foreign-born criminals with family here to avoid being deported. Controversial Direction 99 will be repealed in 2 weeks, replaced with a new order prioritising community safety.
After weeks of pressure and calls for his head, the Immigration Minister attempts to clean up the mess.
Today I've signed Ministerial Direction 110.
Replacing his old Direction 99, which softened Australia's migration laws, directing the Administrative Appeals Tribunal to consider foreign-born criminals' ties to Australia as a primary factor when reviewing visa cancellations.
There are people who have fallen victim to these criminals who have stayed in our country who should have been deported.
Including murderers, rapists and pedophiles.
The new revised direction will make crystal clear that the Australian government expects community protection to be given greater weight.
Effectively reneging on a promise Anthony Albanese made to former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern to stop deporting Kiwi criminals who'd spent most of their lives in Australia.
It's just not right that we think that people who have no connection to New Zealand are deported to New Zealand.
The new directive won't come into effect for another 2 weeks. In the meantime, around 10 visa cases will be decided under the old rules. The minister watching those closely, revealing,
Since the beginning of last week, I've cancelled 40 visas.
but the opposition's not convinced the new order goes far enough.
It continues to have ties to the Australian community as a primary consideration, and that will lead the AAT to make decisions like they have been before.
Keeping the pressure on.
Do you expect the job minister over the winter break?
Rob Scott, 7 News.
Israel has been condemned over an airstrike which killed at least 40 people, many of them women and children in central Gaza. It claims Hamas terrorists were hiding in the school where thousands of homeless Palestinians were sheltering.
14 children were killed. Those aren't terrorists. We expect them to be fully transparent in making that information public.
The White House is demanding Hamas accept the offer on the table for a ceasefire. D-Day veterans have issued warnings about the horrors of war as world leaders marked 80 years since the Normandy landings. They were flanked by 1 million people for sombre ceremonies along the French coast.
By the beaches of Normandy, those of the greatest generation return. Once they were barely adults fighting to free a continent, today applauded by presidents, princes,
very nice to meet you, Prince William,
prime ministers and a forever grateful people. Along the French coast, multiple services commemorating a most mighty campaign.
And you are back here today, at home, if I may say.
160,000 Allied troops sent by sea and air to defeat Nazism. 10,000 killed, wounded or injured in a single day. Watching from the air, 19-year-old Australian Max Barry.
We'd been bombing on the coast. I had a marvellous view of the channel with over 5,000 ships there. Amazing.
Later shot down, captured by the Nazis and freed, Max turns 100 this year.
Well, I suppose it sets an example of what can be done to try and retain this lifestyle that we have.
If the debt paid by an entire generation to fight tyranny appears overwhelming, that's because it was. The message here, 8 decades on, democracy again needs defending. Volodymyr Zelensky, a modern-day wartime leader embraced by veterans.
Oh, you're the saviour of the people.
The US president warning,
we will not walk away.
100-year-old Harold Terrans hoping the sacrifice was not in vain.
I come here to pay my respects to the 9,634 buddies of mine that are buried right in back of me, and I'll go anywhere in the world at my own expense to help preserve peace.
A victory valued 80 years on, a peace feeling fragile. In Normandy, France, Hugh Whitfeld, 7 News.
Forget Queensland Day, we're calling this Queensland Week after the Maroons claimed Game 2 of the Women's State of Origin series.
Alissa Smith, their comeback victory sets up a thrilling Game 3 decider.
For the first time in history, Max and Sharyn, the inaugural 3-game series will be decided in 3 weeks' time in Townsville. Last night was their Matildas moment with a new record broken.
25,800 screaming fans of all ages. The biggest crowd ever for a women's standalone game.
We walk down the street and whether it's people yelling out blues, we kind of take it in and go, well, they're recognising the women's game.
Real grind, and it took a lot of heart, and I think the girls showed the true Queensland spirit, never giving up and playing to the last whistle.
Yeah, that's true Origin football. It's so good for our game to play a game of footy like that.
And they're not done yet, with another record-breaking crowd expected in the north. Alissa Smith, 7 News.
Petrol prices are soaring again just in time for the school holidays. Next, the radical new plan to reduce the price spikes. Will it work?
Breaking news on the future of Mount Coot-tha's Summit restaurant.
Clive Palmer's super yacht runs into trouble on the Gold Coast.
And time's running out, how to make the most of tax changes before the end of the financial year.
On 7 News, there is Aussie as meat pies and footy.
Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi.
But old Holdens are running out of time.
So they just ride up the car.
Why it's crunch time for a national icon being forced off the roads. 7 News, coming up.
We have some breaking news now. An approval has been granted for Mount Coot-tha's new Summit restaurant. Steve Hart, construction is expected to begin soon.
Yes, finally, Sharyn. Look, there were some heritage issues for the Mantle Group to navigate. Initially, a century-old fig tree was a stumbling block, but they managed to reach a compromise on that. It will form a centrepiece of the new Summit restaurant design. In more recent times, it's about how they could comply with some fairly strict noise issues in terms of, have a venue here that will have live music with functions at night. I spoke to the Mantle Group CEO late this afternoon. In fact, we broke the news to him. He was ecstatic, obviously, but trying to keep a bit of a lid on it because they've got a 20-day period now where last-minute submissions can be put forward. As long as they get through that, well, then building can begin.
Steve Hart at the Mount Coot-tha Summit tonight. Fuel companies would be banned from hitting Queenslanders with dramatic price hikes under a proposal put to the state government. The RACQ argues intervention is needed because the open market has failed and is adding to cost of living pressures.
A peak hour petrol rush as prices plummet to levels rarely seen since the 90s. This Sunshine Coast servo selling unleaded for 91.9 cents a litre as part of a radio promotion.
It's like, yes, this is great. Getting a whole tank filled up is awesome.
As drivers elsewhere feel the pinch.
I think the government, they've got to do something. They're not doing much else to help us, are they?
The standard price in Brisbane soaring from $1.79 a litre to $2.29 in 24 hours, a whopping 50 cent per litre hike, despite global oil prices falling.
We really have got to the point where enough is enough.
The RACQ claims we're being taken for a ride. It's demanding the government legislate to prevent retailers from jacking up prices by more than 5 cents a litre a day.
It would rein in the worst excesses of these price hikes and invigorate competition within the Queensland market.
The government's already signalled it won't be intervening anytime soon, simply calling on the big oil companies to give Queensland drivers a fair go.
The state doesn't have the legislative or constitutional authority to regulate prices.
No indications yet of any fuel relief in next week's budget either. Michael Hammond, 7 News.
Billionaire Clive Palmer has hit troubled waters after his $40 million super yacht struck a sandbar on the Gold Coast Broadwater last night. The mining magnate wasn't on board, but it took 4 hours for the tide to rise and a tugboat to free the super yacht. It also ran aground in Singapore last year. Maritime Safety Queensland is now investigating.
Dreaming of a holiday? A direct route from Brisbane is back. Plus, we reveal the top 5 best value overseas destinations.
Our exclusive tour inside a heritage Brisbane home after a luxury revamp.
Legal action launched over a popular new TV series.
And it was 4th time lucky for this year's winner of the Archibald Prize.
The skies have reopened between Brisbane and Bangkok, with Jetstar's new route offering fares as little as $200. Tonight we reveal the best value deals on offer as international airlines slash their prices.
Something to dance about at Brisbane Airport. After a 4-year hiatus, direct flights to Bangkok are back.
This flight goes a long way in terms of restoring the air services that we've had to pre-COVID levels.
Answering popular demand, the new route will take off in January with fares from $205.
This is good news because it means more visitors coming in from Thailand for Queensland tourism businesses.
And a perfect time to grab a bargain.
Such good value, Thailand. If you want to take a family holiday, you could take a 7-day trip for less than $400 per person at the moment.
Across the board, the soaring cost of international flights is finally dropping, down 20% compared to the same time last year. According to Flight Centre, the top 5 most affordable destinations are Los Angeles, Auckland, Bali, Ho Chi Minh City and Osaka.
We're seeing some really good value at the moment. We managed to get LA out of Brisbane below $1,000 and we were able to advertise London out of Brisbane for less than $1,200.
But if you're keen to book an overseas trip, don't wait for a last-minute deal. The best advice, book a flexible flight early and bundle it with your accommodation.
Do your land arrangements before you leave. There's great hotel deals, there's great activity deals.
More options to explore the world and more affordable. Samantha Heathwood, 7 News.
22 tornadoes have been recorded across 5 US states, with at least one of them turning deadly. A 2-year-old boy was killed when a tree fell on the Michigan house where he and his mother were sleeping. In Maryland, around a dozen twisters struck, leaving people injured and some trapped, including one just outside Washington, D.C.
The real-life drama swirling around baby reindeer just keeps getting crazier. Now, the woman claiming to be the real-life inspiration for fictional stalker Martha is suing Netflix. Fiona Harvey is seeking $250 million in damages, citing defamation and emotional distress. Netflix says it will defend the matter vigorously.
A rare renovated heritage home could break records when it goes under the hammer tomorrow. You'll need deep pockets to afford the 1890s Kangaroo Point classic. Today, 7 News was given an exclusive look inside.
A piece of Brisbane history, Rockfield, built in 1892.
It was built by a Captain Daniel McGregor, who was a coal merchant.
Linda Butler's family bought the home in 1997 for just over $450,000.
At the time when we bought the house, it didn't look anything like this, actually.
But just look at it now. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, every detail a labour of love.
It required a lot of master planning, so we spent a couple of years sort of living here and getting a feel for that.
And sits among famous company.
I call this the trifecta. It's the 3 best homes in Kangaroo Point on the cliff here.
Next Door cracked the Brisbane sales record in 2016, fetching more than $18 million. While on the other side, Lamb House sold for close to $13 million in 2021.
These properties just don't come up. I mean, that will never be available again for sale.
But for Linda, with their 3 children about to fly the coop.
Time to downsize and have somebody else come in and love the home as we have.
Well, whoever does end up buying this classic beauty really doesn't have too much more to do. But I am told this area here is already approved if you want to be doing a few laps in your new swimming pool. It goes under the hammer tomorrow morning with a target of $10 million.
A little sad, but then equally proud of what we've achieved.
A home with rich history and a modern feel. Steve Hart, 7 News.
Tim Winton is known for his writing, but a portrait of the novelist has taken out this year's Archibald Prize. The oil painting by Laura Jones beating out 57 other finalists. Ms Jones says she was inspired to paint her subject because of their common interest in conservation.
He said he looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders, and I certainly tried to convey that.
The winning portrait and the work of the other finalists will be on show from tomorrow.
The new test which can determine your chance of developing dementia years in advance. Would you want to know, and could it help find a cure?
What led to a dentist's tyres being slashed in a Springwood car park?
The new charity giving police dogs a dignified retirement.
And soon, topping up your super while saving on tax. The top finance tips ahead of June 30.
Tonight's edition of The Nightly is out now. Australia's only digital newspaper to drop nightly. And it's free. Delivered to your pocket every weeknight. Spend your night wisely. Free at thenightly.com.au.
Police are investigating after a Tesla driver was allegedly seen slashing a dentist's tyres outside his surgery at Springwood this morning. Witnesses say the man became angry after his mirror was swiped.
It was really upsetting and just a little bit crazy, to be honest, for something that was so minor.
The damage is expected to cost more than $2,000.
Australian researchers are developing a world-leading test to detect dementia almost a decade in advance.
It's a breakthrough that could help doctors stop the disease in its tracks.
Reflecting on happier times, this was Catherine Moyle and her husband Chris before his dementia diagnosis 8 years ago.
It's been a major change. a lot of grieving for what was, and now we try to make the best of every day.
It's a disease that affects up to 500,000 Australians. Now, World First research can predict dementia up to a decade in advance with 80% accuracy.
If it delivers on what it says it can do, then this is a very exciting breakthrough.
Doctors can analyse MRI scans to detect areas of the brain affected by Alzheimer's disease before the damage is done.
If we can slow down the process by another 10, 15 years, that's huge. We can actually slow down so much it almost stops.
And help save lives.
If we use these drugs well before the onset of symptoms, we can potentially stop the symptoms ever developing, so the person won't die of Alzheimer's disease.
Currently, there is no cure, but researchers say leading a healthy lifestyle, including eating well and regular exercise, can help reduce the risk.
We're going to be more likely to focus on these brain health promoting activities if we know that we are already in the first stages of developing dementia.
Ainsley Kosh, 7 News.
A new charity called Blue Paws has been launched to fund the care of police dogs when they retire. The animals usually finish their service at 8 or 9 years old and can have ongoing veterinary costs.
They deserve it. They spend their entire life dedicated to serving the people of Queensland, apprehending people, finding missing people. So it's good to see them taken care of.
There are 19 retired police dogs in Queensland.
It was one of the most common cars on our roads, but now the Holden Commodore is fast disappearing. Why many are being written off and how owners are trying to preserve motoring history. That story is just ahead on 7 News. But time now for sport, and from Holdens to Ferraris, Alissa.
The Broncos are missing theirs. Sharyn, hello everyone. Kevin Walters is fuming over Reece Walsh's Origin KO. Plus, Queensland legends' fingerprints all over the upset that's rocked the cricketing world.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news now.
Our Women's Origin team will head to Townsville's decider with one of their most influential on board. Last night's player of the match, Shannon Martow, can escape suspension with an early plea after the Maroons left it late to square the series in Newcastle.
Beers in the shed after a watershed night for the women's game.
I played in 2009 when we were playing on local fields, and now we're having a chance to go around Magic Round. Any hope at all, we were written off, which as Queenslanders we didn't like.
It was a real grind and it took a lot of heart. And
Kevin Walters has slammed the 4-week ban handed to Blues centre Joseph Suaalii as not being harsh enough for the brutal hit that floored Reece Walsh. The Broncos have a handy backup. Tristan Saylor's back on deck against the Sharks tomorrow night.
Enemies on Wednesday, friends again by Friday. Reece Walsh, Blues assistant John Cartwright and prop Payne Haas showing all's fair in love and war. Or is it?
Crossing the line's a big one for me. That's the second time it's happened, and 4 weeks for me is not enough.
Kevin Walters believes the NRL should have sent a stronger statement for Joseph Suaalii's devastating Origin hit.
That's not going to deter another player from coming out and next time Reece plays, trying to take his head off again.
But was it a premeditated attack?
That was the first block play of the game, so you make your own mind up.
Tristan Saylor deputises at fullback, an amazing recovery just 3 weeks after ankle surgery.
Been in here 7 days a week for the last 3 weeks, getting it right, so hats off to Tristan.
Reece Lightning, the only Bronco not backing up from Wednesday against the Sharks, who didn't pick under-fire Blues halfback Nico Hines.
One thing I did like, he went after the game. It's not like he didn't shrink. He got the ball as much as possible. He would have liked to execute a few things better.
In Townsville, the Cowboys will be missing two of their Origin quartet, Reece Robson and Murray Taulagi. The Maroons marathon man, Tom Dearden, who covered more Ks than anyone, will try and run the Warriors into the ground.
Tommy Dearden looked like he'd played 15 or more games or more.
The Bunnies head to the Gold Coast, kicking off a Super Saturday for all three Queensland teams. There's a push for Latrell Mitchell to get a Blues recall to save the series.
I wouldn't want to be standing opposite Latrell in an Origin, so my views haven't changed on that.
Mo Fotuaika backs up for the Titans. Brett Thomas, 7 News.
The Dolphins insist they haven't taken a risk by reviving the NRL career of Tevita Pangai Jr. Playing with South Logan in the Q Cup, the former Bronco, Bulldog and Panther turned boxer is being reunited with Wayne Bennett amid a spate of injuries to his forwards.
He always considers he's played his best football under Wayne, so it seems like a good marriage for the rest of the year, and I'm sure it'll be good for both of us.
Pangai starts training Monday. The Reds are red-faced tonight as the Chiefs hand them a Super Rugby lesson in their quarter-final. When Queensland did have possession, they weren't on the same page. The home side made them pay, romping in 4 opening half tries.
He's got a Money Nutter on the inside and Money's going to score. That's a beauty.
Party time in Hamilton, not even the sideline could stop them. Well, it's been 10 years to the day since the Lions beat the Bulldogs at Marvel Stadium. Breaking that drought tonight is crucial to remain in the finals hunt. Goal scoring's been a problem, but one of Brisbane's best is with Mitch Cleary.
Thanks, Alissa. Simply must win for the Lions tonight if they are to stay in touch with the top 8. I'm with Zach Bailey. Zach, has the group touched on how important this is for your season to win tonight?
Yeah, it's obviously a huge opportunity tonight. We obviously didn't start the season how we wanted to, so we've had a review and had our bye, and I think we're ready to attack the back end of the season.
Just the inaccuracy, Chris touched on it during the week in terms of it's probably cost you a couple of games this year. What can you do about that?
Yeah, that was one of the major areas that we need to improve, and we've gotten to work this week on it, and that's big area of focus for us to try and put them through the big 6.
Best of luck tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for that. Cheers.
There you have it, Alissa, the latest from the Lions camp. Don't forget tonight's game live and free here, straight after the news on the screens of 7.
Cannot wait. Well, Queensland Bulls legend Stuart Laws helped cause one of world cricket's biggest boilovers after America took down Pakistan at the T20 World Cup. Law now coaches the hosts, who beat one of the pre-tournament favourites by 5 runs. Chasing Pakistan's 7 for 159 in Texas, the US tied their score, sending the match to a super over. America made 18 runs, including 7 wides from Mohammad Amir, the player once jailed for spot fixing.
Brilliant effort from Kumar, diving forward. What a catch!
America are now 2 from 2. Sharyn, that is sport.
All right, thanks, Alissa. Well, time now for a check on the markets with finance editor Gemma Acton. And Gemma, how has the share market closed out the week?
Well, we've had a solid end to a robust week, boosted by news that central banks in both Canada and Europe cut interest rates in recent days. Meanwhile, today, insurance giant QBE locked in its highest close in 13 years. The Aussie dollar has taken another step higher and closer towards 67 US cents, while iron ore had a strong session overnight. And nearly 1 million Australian workers hold multiple jobs. It is a new record and equates to 6.7% of all employed people. A higher proportion of women than men hold multiple jobs, while 20 to 24-year-olds are the most likely cohort to be working in more than one place.
Gemma Acton there. The race is on to maximise your tax return before July 1.
Tonight we have your super hacks you need to do now to supersize your nest egg.
30-year-old Cody Drew is super savvy. The self-employed electrician has been putting an extra 4% into his retirement savings all year.
I'm putting money into super now because the tax cuts this year will be greater than next year.
It's not the only hack to supersize your super. You can contribute up to $27,500 annually and claim it as a tax deduction.
The tax deduction is greater this year than it will be next year. So if you put an extra $10,000 into super this year, you're going to get a bigger tax deduction for that, which is more money in your pocket now.
Now is also the time to salary sacrifice things like your car, pay health insurance and make charity donations. There are also benefits if you sell an investment property, unloading some of the capital gains into super.
If you have unused concessional contributions from your previous years, then you're able to top up your super, provided your super balance is below $500,000.
Instead of spending your tax cut from July 1, experts say put it in your super fund. An extra $100 a month over the next 25 years will add around $60,000 to your retirement savings. While Host Plus is the best performing super fund over the past 10 years, you don't need an industry fund for success.
The ups and downs don't really matter.
What really matters is how much you're going to have when you do retire.
And if you've been slack with your super, it's never too late to catch up.
It's either you put it in, you invest it into your future, or you are invested into the now.
Samantha Heathwood, 7 News.
Desperate Holden owners are being driven to extreme measures. Why the days could be numbered for a former national icon.
And cold weather settling in with these westerly winds. All your weekend weather forecast, everybody, is coming up after the break.
The Holden Commodore is fast disappearing from our roads as a critical shortage of parts forces many to be written off. Owners are desperate to preserve their piece of motoring history, but insurers say they're too expensive to repair.
For Commodore lovers, it's a sad sight. A graveyard for the nation's once top-selling car. Enthusiasts are battling to keep their iconic Australian-made cars on the road, raiding wreckers for vital components amid a critical parts shortage. Even used bumpers, bonnets and doors have doubled in price.
It's cheaper for the insurance companies to pay them out these days because it's hard to get the parts and they're so expensive, so they just write off the car.
More than ever, doting owners are fighting to preserve the legend.
Holden Monaro quickly takes the lead.
The Kingswood? You're not taking the Kingswood.
Bruce Lethborg has been waiting months for a replacement bumper for his beloved 1992 VP Commodore.
Members got various cars from the 60s right through to the 90s and 2000s, of course, and yeah, they're all experiencing issues with getting certain mainly panels and trims and switches.
General Motors claims the parts shortage is due to their moulded plastic supplier going into administration. The car company says it's been working with administrators and hopes that production will restart in around 3 months. Commodore tragics are banking on it.
What's so good about Commodores?
Aussie. Aussie. Oi, oi, oi.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Weather now, here's Bertie.
Oh, Max, it's freezing out here. G'day, everybody. That cool westerly wind. It's about 16 degrees across the coastal strip. A little bit cool, obviously, in the west, but what we're seeing now is just cutting to the bone. It looks as though another cool night ahead. And for the weekend, dry weather, everyone, for the next several days. But unfortunately, it's those nights and those mornings that'll be feeling rather brisk. So today's temps, everyone, climb to highs of 19 to 20 degrees, 21 along the coastal strip, down to 13 overnight for Greenbank. To the charts now, you can see that trough that's pushed off the eastern seaboard, still affecting areas south of Sydney around Wollongong, bringing up some pretty hefty swell on the southern coast there of New South Wales. The rest of the country remains fairly cloud-free under the influence of a high-pressure ridge. However, we can see that trough approaching southwestern parts of WA into South Australia tomorrow. Now, as we look around the country, we're going to see a little bit of shower activity from Sydney, obviously from that low and that trough pushed off. Possible shower for Canberra, 5 to 17 degrees, and into Melbourne, 8 to 15, but clear skies to the tropical north. And speaking of clear skies, Cairns all the way through to Mackay looking stunning, 12 to 27 for Townsville. Similar conditions all the way from Rockhampton straight down through to Hervey Bay, 9 to 22 degrees, a little bit cooler around Maryborough, down to 6, 3 to 22 for Gympie. On the range at Toowoomba, a little bit of patchy cloud, but plenty of sunshine, 5 to 15. As we take a look across the southeast, hardly a cloud in the sky, maybe around Ipswich, just 1 or 2, but not a lot. 5 to 22, 9 to 21 for Redcliffe, Bayside and Gold Coast, 6 to 22, 8 to 22 for the Sunshine Coast. Similar for Caboolture on the water, westerly winds 15 knots. It'll be calm along the western foreshores, a bit choppy in the exposed waters. 9 to 22 in the city, clear skies running through till next week, looking stunning. 10 to 23 the average, similar for Ipswich, a little bit cooler overnight, down to 5. Highs at 24 to 25. Gold Coast, beautiful run all the way through as well. 12 to 22 starting up for next week. And the Sunshine Coast, looking great. Put the brollies away, enjoy the sunshine, and around 9 to 22. Let's check the waterways for tomorrow, everybody. On the surfing scene, if you're keen to get out there, looks as though we're going to see some pretty good waves about for those on the small swell magnets. It's less than a metre. It's not big, but it's going to grow by mid next week. Couple of metres forecast by Wednesday into Thursday. So the small swell magnets, TOS on South Stratia has been going off. Always holds some pretty good action there, and also down around the Tweedback Beaches and D-Bar. Up on the top end of sunshine weather look as well, Kiwana, but you're going to find those open stretches holding a few little peelers on the morning tide, but not a lot on offer as yet. But a nice day still on the water. Water temp 22-23. Fishing wise, being plenty of good catches of reef fish out on the wider 42 and 50 fathom grounds due east of Mooloolaba, Caloundra wide, and also east of Point Lookout and off the Gold Coast Pin region. Thank you for that sea probe. And plenty of cephalopods or squid around Peel Island at the moment, if you're keen to have a look at those. For arrow squid also down on the Gold Coast Broadwater near wave break.
Thanks, Bertie, and that is all from us this Friday.
From all the team, have a good night.
Good night.